Welcome to the Genian NAC video series. Today we will discuss the AWS AMI Policy Server for private cloud deployments. The AWS Marketplace AMI Genian NAC Policy Server provides a free public AMI available for the basic feature set. This allows customers to deploy the policy server on existing AWS private clouds as an EC2 instance. During the video, we will cover how to link an on-prem network sensor to the AWS EC2 instance. We will also demo how to upgrade from the basic version to a free 30-day professional or enterprise license. As typical with AWS Marketplace AMIs, the AMI itself is supported by the software vendor Genian, while the infrastructure is supported by AWS. From the AWS Marketplace, simply search for Genian NAC. That will bring up the AMI listing. If you take a closer look at this listing, you will see a product overview, also a general product video, which is high level. Highlights include the vendor neutral ARP enforcement, along with other NAC enforcement options that are built in. Device profiling, including IoT and OT, and endpoint security that can be achieved with the optional agent. Looking closer at pricing information, this is actually a free AMI, so the cost is $0 per hour. That leaves only your infrastructure cost, and that will depend on the size of your infrastructure. We do have a recommended size, but we'll talk more about sizing in a moment. There's also additional resources here. This links to our website and gives you an overview of network access control. We have an entire list of how-to videos and demos, as well as our main documentation link and administrator and deployment guides. Additionally, there are usage instructions. This will give you all the instructions to deploy your EC2 from the AMI, instructions to deploy an on-prem network sensor, and even instructions to upgrade to a professional or enterprise version for an additional 30 days free on that version. Also, everything is managed through the UI, so SSH access is not required. However, there are instructions for SSH access if needed, and again, a few more links for more information. So, the next step will actually be to continue to subscribe. So once we click continue, it'll bring us to another page here, and we can review this information again. So here are the details relative to pricing, and you can see that the pricing for the AMI itself is 0 because it's a free image. So we'll continue on to configuration. And from here, it's going to actually just show you the delivery method, software version, and your region. I'm actually going to switch this to my default region. And again, there's the pricing information, and there's an example of the pricing information for infrastructure. So we'll click continue to launch. Okay. So here there's another link to the usage instructions in case we need to reference that at any point. So really the steps we're going to go through is this first section to deploy the EC2 from the AMI. Essentially we're going to allow port 443 for web access. We're going to give the AMI approximately 5 minutes to fully deploy. We will access it through the URL, which is HTTPS and then the full EC2 DNS name /MC2. And then you'll log in with admin as the username, and the default password will actually be the instance ID. There's launch options, so you could actually launch from the website or through EC2. So for this example, we'll just launch directly from the website. And now we'll talk a little bit more about sizing. So here you see a recommended T2 medium, which is 4 gig and 2 cores. So if you want to reference more information about sizing, you can head over to docs.genians.com. Simply type in sizing, click on sizing software and hardware, and there you'll find a table for sizing your policy server. You can see here various tiers, but 2,000 nodes can be supported by 2 cores and 8 gig. So you'll notice the recommended version was smaller than that. It was half of that. So you can comfortably support up to 1,000 nodes on the recommended version. And if we go back here and reference, you'll see that's 4 gig. If you decided you wanted a larger instance, you could certainly select that, and you still get 2 cores, but 8 gig. So it's your choice, and you can size this for whatever is appropriate for your infrastructure needs and your budget. We're going to leave all these other settings for the VPC subnet settings default. Of course, in your environment, you could select the appropriate information there. And then for the security group, we're going to go ahead and create one based on the seller's settings. So if we click on that and we just give it NAC access as the name in the description. And essentially what we have here is we've got just 443 right now for the UI. We'll be modifying this a little bit later as we perform some new steps. And then of course I could customize that to custom IP, and I could just verify my IP address, public facing IP address, and paste that right in, and then click Save. Okay, so now, excuse me, I'm going to select the, very important, the appropriate key pair settings for my default region. So I'm going to go ahead and click Launch. All right, so now it's actually in the process of launching. And there's a couple of ways that we could actually view this. We could look at the launch details here, or go straight to the EC2 console. And that's what we're going to do next. We're going to go straight to the EC2 console. So now we will click on EC2 console. And here you'll see the instance is running. We've given it roughly 5 minutes to spin up. And there you see all the details. Security group. So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and copy the full DNS name to the clipboard. Okay, and as you recall from our instructions, so we've completed all these instructions here. We're about to log in, so we're going to use the actual EC2 instance ID as the password. So we can come in here, copy that, and we'll log in. And here's the EULA, of course. This information is just relative to your browser time zone, etc. SNMP, SSID information, this is optional information and not required for this demo. This is only applicable if you're going to be integrating with switches, doing wireless policies. So we'll just leave that blank default for right now. Click OK. And that's it. So now you have a policy server that is now up and running in your private AWS cloud, and you'll automatically be prompted to take the next step of downloading the image, an ISO image that you can use for an on-prem network sensor, as well as the installation guide. But we're going to cover that as part of this video anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. Okay. So now that we have this system up and running, the next step is we're going to point a virtual network sensor that I've already installed in this laptop, and we're going to point it to this AWS Cloud Policy Server, and it should report any nodes on my local network into the policy server, and they should start to show up here. So that'll be our next step. So for the virtual network sensor installation, if we once again go back and reference our usage instructions for the AMI, we've completed everything in step 1. And now we're in step 2 to deploy an on-prem network sensor. So we're going to make a modification first to the security group to allow some ports through. And here is a detailed video. Again, this is less than 10 minutes long, but this will tell you how to actually install a virtual network sensor. I think it takes roughly 7 minutes to do that, and then all IP-enabled nodes on your sensor network should show up in your policy server. So first things first, we're going to go back into our security group, and we're going to allow a couple more ports through for the policy server the network sensor to policy server communication. So we're going to edit the inbound rules here. We're going to add a rule which is going to include UDP. So we'll just add another rule here. Save that. Okay. So now we'll go take a look at the sensor. So here is a sensor that I installed using that instructional video. It only takes maybe 7 minutes to download and install this, configure it. Basically, the settings are really straightforward. There's an ISO image that I actually downloaded and installed from the website here, so you can download that ISO image. And then I have the network adapter set to bridge. Other than that, this is just a regular laptop connected to a wireless network with a few other nodes on the network. So nothing special there. So if we take a look at this configuration, we'll see that it's actually pointing to a previous AWS policy server I was testing on. So we're actually going to remove that line, and we're going to replace it and point to our new cloud policy server. So what we'll do here is we will go back to our EC2 instance, and here's the full name. Okay, so now that is pointed to the new policy server that we just deployed in your AWS Private Cloud. We're going to go back to the UI. Of course, previously there were no nodes here, so we're going to refresh that. And now we see a few nodes there. So if we go take a look under Management and Node, we'll see here there is now a sensor. So this sensor is the sensor that I just deployed. So this 1.100 is the virtual network sensor in VM Workstation we were just looking at. And you can see here it's in a host mode, monitoring mode. So it's not enforcing any policies, it's just monitoring the network. And we see just a few other nodes here on this small test network. There's information there that gets populated. More information if you add more configurations, but off the bat there's just some basic information relative to IP, IPv6, MAC address. Everything matches on a default enforcement policy, which allows you to deploy this passively on any network without any disruption. And you'll notice, of course, we have not integrated with anything on this test network. So we simply brought up the sensor, it linked up to the Cloud Policy Server, and we're monitoring information. We haven't touched any switches, any routers, any wireless equipment. We're collecting information. As time goes on, platforms will be refined and identified. More detailed information will come available. And as that's refined, you'll be able to look at device platform intelligence for all the nodes on the network, which includes an image of the device, a link to the platform family. If there is end of sale, end of life information will show up here, fingerprinting source information, manufacturer information for context of any business risk. So we even include acquisitions if that happens, and then also link any potential CVEs to the platform. But there's more information about that on our website. So today's video is really about deploying this AWS Cloud Policy Server, linking up a sensor, and then getting to an operational status. So far we've done all that. The one thing to note here is that if you click on Policy and you look at the enforcement policy, you'll see actually that this feature requires professional. So we're on a free version right now, which provides us visibility for up to 300 devices. However, if you want to test additional features like blocking, using the ARP enforcement, enabling zero trust, where you allow these 7 devices on and block all new devices, or any of the other features like radius, etc., that requires a higher edition. So once again, we go back, reference our usage instructions. Here are all the steps to try out professional or enterprise. So here's the steps right here, and we're going to walk through that right now. So it's intuitive enough. You just click on upgrade here. It's going to bring you to the mygenius.com. Now, to install the virtual network sensor, to download that ISO, you would have had to have already previously created an account here. So we'll log in with that account. And when you log in, it's going to take you to any instances that you have active here. So what I need to do now is I need to obtain a license for the cloud site I just created. So there's 2 licensing options here. TriCloud is for the Genian's cloud. So technically this private cloud is really, it's not part of the Genian's cloud. So it's really, from a licensing perspective, it's more considered on-prem. So you would click on-prem for your license. It's going to ask you for your server ID. So what we do is we go right back to our UI. And again, these instructions are all under the AMI usage instructions. So everything I'm doing now is covered there. Click on license, and I'm going to grab my server ID here. Plug that in. I'm going to get enterprise. We can get professional or enterprise. I'm going to go ahead and get enterprise up to 300, and I'm going to get a 30-day trial license. So I'm going to click on this. Okay, so now I have my 30-day trial license right here. I'm just going to copy that information. Click on register license. Paste it in right here, register. And that's it. The upgrade button is gone, and now I have a 30-day trial for up to 300 devices for Enterprise Edition. So now if I go back to policy and enforcement policy, now it's changed. You do not have the error message that you need the professional. This is just telling me that I'm in a monitor mode, and I need to change it to active mode if I want to enforce policies. So now you could do that, and we have a separate video called Zero Trust that shows you how to actually activate this sensor into an active mode and start actively profiling additional devices and blocking them and assigning least privilege access, etc. So again, that's everything you need to know, A to Z, to deploy your EC2 on your own private AWS cloud from the publicly available free Genian NAC AMI.